Listen carefully, because what I'm about to share with you isn't just about asking questions. It's about unlocking a connection so real, so powerful, that she'll feel seen, understood, and truly valued. You see, most conversations fail because they stay on the surface. Small talk, cliches, the usual "how was your day?" But when you learn the art of asking the right questions, everything changes. It's not about interrogation or trying to impress. It's about sparking something deeper. A space where she can drop her guard, open her heart, and share the parts of herself she usually keeps hidden. And that, my friend, is where true connection begins. So, if you've ever felt stuck in awkward silences, or wondered how to truly get her to open up, this speech is for you. I'm going to give you 14 powerful, game-changing questions, carefully crafted to make her feel comfortable, intrigued, and eager to share. But before we dive in, remember this: it's not just what you ask, it's how you ask. It's the energy, the curiosity, the respect behind every word. Master this, and you won't just start conversations. You'll create bonds that last. Are you ready? Because this is the moment where your conversations will never be the same again. You might think that starting a conversation with someone you like is just about having the right lines or asking the most clever questions. But that's not where real connection begins. What truly changes everything is your genuine curiosity, your honest desire to know her, not just to hear words or fill silence, but to actually understand who she is beneath the surface. Think about it. How many times have you been in a conversation where the other person seemed distracted, or like they were waiting for their turn to talk rather than truly listening? It feels cold, right? And it makes you shut down. On the flip side, when someone looks at you with real interest, when their eyes light up and their body language shows they're present, suddenly you feel this urge to share more, to open up parts of yourself you don't usually show. That's the power of genuine curiosity. When you approach a girl with real interest, it sends a message: you matter. What you think, what you feel, what you dream about, it's important to me. And that simple message is magnetic. It pulls her out of her shell and invites her to step into a space where she can be herself without judgment. But here's the key: curiosity isn't just about firing off questions one after another like an interview. It's about tuning into her energy, her emotions, her responses, and letting that guide you. It's a delicate dance. When you ask a question and she starts to open up, you lean in a little more. When she seems hesitant or reserved, you slow down and give her space. It's about reading the room, reading her, and adapting. This is why the right questions alone aren't enough. If you ask someone questions without caring about the answers, it feels fake. But if your curiosity is real, it shines through. Your tone, your pauses, your follow-up questions, all of this communicates something beyond words. It says, "I want to understand you deeply." And that understanding, it's the foundation of trust. Without it, conversations stay shallow and fleeting. But with it, she begins to let down her guard, to share her hopes, her fears, her stories that she hasn't told anyone else. That's when connection grows. Not from clever lines, but from authentic interest. Now, I want you to imagine a conversation where you're not just trying to impress, but you're genuinely fascinated by her perspective. Maybe she tells you about a passion of hers that surprises you, or a challenge she's facing. Instead of rushing to fix it or turn the spotlight back on yourself, you listen. You ask questions that invite her to explore those feelings more. You might say something like, "That sounds really meaningful to you. What made you feel that way?" Or, "How did that experience change you?" These aren't just words, they're keys that unlock doors. And when she sees you're not judging or rushing, but truly interested, she starts to feel safe. That safety is rare, and it's exactly what you want to create if you want a meaningful connection. Because people open up to those who make them feel safe, heard, and valued. This genuine curiosity also reveals something important about you. It shows confidence. Not the kind that comes from trying to be the center of attention, but the quiet, grounded confidence that says, I'm comfortable enough in myself to be interested in you. This kind of confidence is attractive because it's sincere and unforced. Another thing to keep in mind is that genuine curiosity fuels your growth too. Every time you listen deeply to someone's story, you're expanding your understanding of the world, of people, of life. You're learning empathy, patience, and kindness. And that makes you a better partner, friend, and person overall. So, before you even think about what question to ask next time you're talking to a girl you like, check in with yourself. Are you really curious about her? Or are you just thinking about how to get a good reaction or impress her? Because when your curiosity is real, the whole dynamic changes. The conversation flows naturally. The silences aren't awkward. They're moments of connection. And the questions you ask become invitations for her to share her true self. Let me be clear, this isn't about grilling her with questions or making her feel like she's on the spot. It's about creating a space where she feels comfortable enough to share, and you feel excited to listen. It's the subtle difference between a conversation that feels like a checklist and one that feels like a journey you're both on together. And the beauty is, genuine curiosity is contagious. When she sees you care about her story, she'll start to mirror that curiosity back to you. Suddenly, it's not just about you learning about her. It's about both of you discovering each other, layer by layer. This is why, no matter how good your conversation starters are, without genuine curiosity, the conversation falls flat. But with it, every question becomes powerful. Every answer becomes meaningful. Every moment becomes a stepping stone to something real. So as you get ready to use the 14 best questions I'm about to share with you, remember this foundation. The questions themselves are tools, but your curiosity is the fuel that brings them to life. When you approach your next conversation with genuine interest, you won't just get her to talk. You'll get her to open up. You'll create a connection that feels effortless, natural, and deeply rewarding. That is the secret that changes everything. When it comes to starting a conversation with a girl you like, one of the biggest mistakes people make is jumping straight into heavy or overly personal topics. You don't want to scare her off or make her feel uncomfortable before you even really get going. That's why starting light and fun is not just a good idea. It's essential. These initial moments set the tone for everything that follows. They break the ice, ease tension, and create a safe, relaxed space where she can be herself. Think about the times you've met someone new and the conversation starts with the usual. How was your day? Or, what do you do? Those questions might be polite, but they're also predictable and often forgettable. If you want her to really open up, you need something more engaging. Questions that spark curiosity, laughter, or a little bit of playful intrigue. The goal here isn't to dig deep just yet. It's to make her smile, feel comfortable, and want to keep talking. The beauty of starting light is that it's low pressure. You're not asking her to reveal her deepest fears or dreams right away. Instead, you're inviting her into a space that's fun, easygoing, and spontaneous. This helps her relax, and when people relax, they naturally become more open and genuine. For example, instead of the typical, "What do you do?" you might ask something like, "If you could be a character in any movie or TV show, who would you be and why?" That kind of question immediately shifts the conversation from ordinary to imaginative. It invites her to think creatively and share something unique about herself. It also tells you a lot about her personality without ever feeling like an interview. Another light and fun question could be, "What's the weirdest or funniest thing that's happened to you recently?" This not only gives her a chance to share a personal story, but also sets the stage for laughter and connection. When you both share a laugh early on, it creates an instant bond that makes everything that comes after easier. These kinds of questions show that you're not just going through the motions. You're genuinely interested, in having an enjoyable conversation with her. And that enjoyment is contagious. When she senses you're having fun, she's more likely to let her guard down and join in that playful energy. You can also use situational questions that relate to where you are or what's happening around you. For example, if you're at a coffee shop, you might ask, if you had to invent a new coffee flavor, what would it be? It's lighthearted, creative, and relevant. 3 things that make it easy for her to respond naturally. Starting with light questions also gives you an opportunity to gauge her mood and personality. Is she more serious or playful? Does she enjoy humor or thoughtful reflection? Paying attention to these cues helps you steer the conversation in a direction that feels comfortable and engaging for her. One important thing to remember is that starting light doesn't mean being superficial. It's about creating space for genuine connection, just without the weight of heavy topics right away. It's like laying a foundation before building a house. If your foundation is shaky or rushed, sometimes the best conversations come from the unexpected answers to these fun questions. Maybe she picks a movie character you never would have guessed, or shares a hilarious story that reveals a side of her you wouldn't have seen otherwise. These moments become memories you both share, little sparks that make your connection unique. But let me be clear, the goal isn't just to collect answers or tick off questions from a list. It's to use these starters as bridges, bridges that lead to something deeper, richer, and more meaningful. They're the invitation to a conversation that feels effortless, natural, and enjoyable. When you start light, you're also showing respect for her boundaries. You're saying, I want to get to know you at your pace. There's no rush. And that respect is magnetic because it creates trust. So before you launch into your conversation next time, take a moment to think about how you want her to feel. Do you want her to feel pressured or relaxed? Curious or closed off? If you choose to start light and fun, you're choosing connection, ease, and openness. And when she feels that way, the rest of the conversation becomes a joyful journey you both want to take. The laughs, the stories, the shared moments, all of it lays the groundwork for her to open up even more. Remember, it's not about having all the perfect questions memorized. It's about your attitude and the energy you bring. Be playful, be genuine, be curious, and watch how the conversation unfolds. This is how you move from awkward silences to engaging, memorable conversations. This is how you start a connection that feels effortless and real. And when you master this, you won't just be asking questions. You'll be creating moments that linger long after the conversation ends. As the conversation begins to flow and she starts feeling comfortable, that's when the real magic can happen. This is the moment when you can gently move beyond the surface and invite her to share a bit more about what truly matters to her. The feelings, the dreams, the experiences that shape who she is beneath the surface. These are the questions that encourage emotional sharing and vulnerability. And when done right, they deepen your connection in ways that casual, small talk never could. Now, I know this might sound intimidating at first. Opening up emotionally isn't always easy for anyone. It takes courage and trust to share your true self, your fears, and your hopes. And it's important to remember that it's not about forcing her to spill her deepest secrets right away. It's about creating an environment where she feels safe enough to do so, on her own terms. One of the most powerful things you can do is listen deeply. When you ask a question that invites emotional sharing, you have to be ready to receive her answer fully, without judgment, without rushing to fix things, and without turning the conversation back to yourself immediately. This is a moment to be fully present. Let her feel heard and understood. That alone is often enough to encourage her to open up even more. For example, instead of asking something like, "What's your biggest fear?" which can feel abrupt or heavy, you might say, "What's something that's been on your mind a lot lately?" This kind of question is gentle, but it still opens the door to deeper feelings. It gives her space to decide how much she wants to share, whether it's something light or more serious. Or you could ask, "What's a dream or goal you've been holding onto, even if it feels a little scary to chase it?" This question taps into her hopes and ambitions, and it shows that you care about what drives her. It's not just about surface-level interests. It's about what moves her, what lights a fire inside her. Another great approach is to ask questions that invite reflection, like, "What's a lesson you've learned recently that really changed the way you see things?" These questions encourage her to think deeply, and when she shares, you get a glimpse into her values and how she's growing. What's so powerful about these kinds of questions is that they signal you're interested in her inner world, not just her appearance or what she does for fun. You're saying, "I want to know the real you, the person you don't always show." And when a girl senses that, it can be incredibly disarming and comforting. It's also important to approach these questions with empathy. If she starts to share something vulnerable, don't rush to offer advice or fix the problem. Sometimes the best thing you can do is simply say, "Thank you for trusting me with that," or, "That sounds really tough. I'm here for you." Those simple responses show that you respect her feelings and that you're a safe person to open up to. And remember, vulnerability is a two-way street. When she shares something personal, it can create a powerful invitation for you to share too. This doesn't mean you have to spill your whole life story right then and there, but offering a bit of your own experience or feeling helps balance the conversation. It shows you're willing to be open as well, which strengthens the connection. Sometimes, you might notice her hesitating or pulling back when a question gets too deep. That's okay. Vulnerability can be scary, and everyone has their own pace. The key is to be patient and respectful. If she's not ready to share something, don't push. Instead, acknowledge it gently and shift the conversation back to lighter topics or ask what she feels comfortable talking about. This respect for boundaries builds trust, which over time makes deeper sharing more likely. These emotional sharing questions also help you learn about her values, what she cares about, and how she views the world. For instance, if she talks about a challenge she overcame, you get insight into her resilience and character. If she shares a dream, you see her passions and what motivates her. This kind of understanding goes far beyond surface-level attraction and sets the stage for a meaningful, lasting connection. Another beautiful thing about encouraging emotional sharing is that it helps her feel truly seen. So often, people go through life feeling misunderstood or overlooked. When you listen deeply and ask questions that invite her to open up, you give her the gift of being understood. And that is powerful. It's also worth mentioning that these questions don't have to be heavy all the time. Emotional sharing can be joyful and uplifting too. You can ask things like, what's a moment that recently made you feel really happy or proud? Or, who in your life inspires you the most and why? These kinds of questions celebrate positive feelings and bring lightness into the conversation, even as you get deeper. By inviting her to share these emotions and reflections, you create a connection that feels rich and authentic. She starts to see you not just as someone interested in small talk or surface-level charm, but as someone who genuinely cares about her inner world. And here's the truth. When you create that kind of space, she's more likely to open up, not just in that moment, but over time as well. She'll start to feel comfortable sharing her thoughts and feelings more freely. Knowing you'll listen with kindness and understanding, this deepening of conversation is where relationships start to grow from casual to meaningful. It's where trust forms, where attraction becomes rooted in respect and admiration. And it all begins with a willingness to ask thoughtful questions that encourage emotional sharing and vulnerability. So next time you find yourself talking to a girl you like, don't be afraid to ask those deeper questions. Approach them with empathy, patience, and genuine curiosity. Listen not just to reply, but to understand. And you'll find that she'll open up in ways you never imagined. Because real connection is never about surface-level chat. It's about diving beneath the surface and meeting someone where they really are. That is where the magic happens. One of the most important things to understand about conversations, especially with someone you genuinely like, is that it's not a one-sided thing. It's not just about you asking questions and her answering like an interview. Real connection happens when both of you are engaged, curious, and open. The best conversations feel like a dance where both people are listening, sharing, and responding to each other. This balance between asking and sharing is what turns simple questions into powerful moments of connection. Too often, people fall into the trap of thinking that, to keep a conversation going, they have to constantly ask questions. So they fire off one after another, hoping she'll respond, hoping she'll open up. But if you do that without sharing anything about yourself, it starts to feel like an interrogation. And that can put her on edge or make her feel like she's the only one vulnerable in the conversation. Vulnerability is scary enough. It's important that it feels mutual. When you balance listening and sharing, it shows that you're not just interested in hearing about her, but you're willing to be seen too. This mutual vulnerability creates trust and intimacy. It says, I'm here, I'm present, and I'm willing to be real with you. And that's incredibly attractive. Imagine this: you ask a question, and she starts to open up about a personal experience or a feeling. Instead of moving immediately to the next question, you respond by sharing something similar from your life. Maybe it's a challenge you faced or a moment that taught you something important. You're not trying to overshadow her story or turn the spotlight back on yourself. Rather, you're saying, I see you, and here's a part of me too. That's the kind of connection that feels genuine and balanced. This back and forth creates a rhythm that feels natural, not forced. It's like a conversation between two people who are really present with each other, not just exchanging words, but sharing parts of themselves. And when that happens, the conversation becomes less about what question should I ask next, and more about simply enjoying the moment. It's also important to listen actively. That means really paying attention to what she says, noticing the emotions behind her words, and responding thoughtfully. Sometimes that means asking a follow-up question that shows you're engaged, like, that sounds really meaningful to you. Can you tell me more? Other times it might be as simple as nodding, smiling, or saying, I understand, to show you're present. Active listening isn't just about waiting for your turn to speak. It's about making her feel heard, valued, and understood. And when you do that, she'll naturally want to keep sharing. Another key piece of balancing the conversation is being mindful of your body language and tone. Open, relaxed body language invites her to feel comfortable. Make eye contact, lean in slightly when she's speaking, and keep your tone warm and sincere. These nonverbal cues communicate your interest just as much as your words. You also want to be mindful of how much you share. Vulnerability is powerful, but it should feel safe and appropriate. You don't need to unload your entire life story all at once, but sharing personal stories or feelings that relate to the conversation shows you trust her and want to build a deeper connection. One of the beautiful things about this balance is that it builds rapport naturally. When both people feel seen and heard, the conversation flows effortlessly. It's less about trying to impress and more about being authentic. It's also a way to avoid misunderstandings. When you share your thoughts and feelings openly, it reduces the chance that she'll misinterpret your intentions or feel like she's guessing what you want. Clear, honest sharing builds clarity and trust. And let's not forget humor. Sharing funny lights up her eyes when she talks. That's where personalization comes in. When your questions reflect what you know about her interests and personality, the conversation feels effortless, authentic, and deeply engaging. Think about it this way. Everyone likes to feel seen for who they truly are. When you ask a question that shows you've been paying attention, it tells her that she's not just another person you're talking to, but someone special. It shows respect, attentiveness, and a genuine desire to understand her on a deeper level. And when that happens, she naturally wants to open up more because she feels valued. So how do you personalize your questions? It starts with observation. Listen carefully to what she says, not just the words but the tone, the emotions behind them. Notice what she gets excited about, what topics she returns to, what stories she tells with passion or hesitation. All of these little clues give you insight into what matters most to her. For example, if she talks about loving music, instead of asking the usual, "What kind of music do you like?" you might say, "You mentioned you love music. What's a song or artist that really speaks to you?" Maybe one that's been a soundtrack to an important moment in your life. That kind of question goes beyond surface level and invites her to share something meaningful. Or if she's passionate about travel, instead of just asking where she's been, you might ask, "What's a place you visited that changed how you see the world?" This type of question not only shows that you heard her interests, but also that you want to understand how those experiences shaped her. Personalizing your questions also means tuning into her personality. Is she someone who enjoys humor and playfulness? Then ask something fun that matches her vibe. Like, if you could create your own holiday, what would it be about? If she's more introspective, questions about dreams or values might resonate more. This is why one size fits all questions rarely work. They can come off as generic or rehearsed. But when your questions reflect her unique interests and personality, it feels like a conversation between two individuals, not a scripted exchange. Another important part of personalizing questions is remembering what she's told you earlier in the conversation. Bringing up something she mentioned before shows you're truly listening and invested. For instance, if she shared a story about a childhood memory, you might later ask, "That story about your childhood was so interesting. How do you think those experiences shaped who you are today?" It demonstrates continuity and care. This also helps the conversation flow naturally. When your questions connect logically to what she said, it feels less like a Q&A and more like a genuine exchange. She'll feel more comfortable because it shows you're present and attentive, not just following a checklist. Personalization isn't just about words either. It's about timing and context. You want to consider the setting, her mood, and how well you know each other. Early on, lighter personalized questions that relate to her interests work best. As you build trust, you can introduce deeper personalized questions that invite reflection and vulnerability. For example, if you know she's been passionate about a cause or hobby for a long time, asking about what motivates her to keep going or what challenges she's faced shows that you care about her journey, not just the surface details. When you personalize your questions, you also open doors for her to share stories and experiences she might not bring up otherwise. You're giving her permission to be herself and talk about what's truly important to her. And that's incredibly empowering. It's also worth noting that personalization helps you avoid awkward moments. Generic questions can sometimes feel stilted or boring, causing the conversation to stall. But personalized questions, because they're relevant and thoughtful, keep the energy alive and make her eager to respond. And here's the thing, when you show you're paying attention and that you remember details, it builds trust. She sees you as someone who values her as an individual, not just as someone you want to impress or pass time with. That kind of trust is the foundation for any meaningful connection. Beyond just making her feel special, personalization helps you learn what truly matters to her. You discover her passions, her challenges, her dreams. And that knowledge is what lets you connect on a deeper level. For example, if she shares her love for painting or writing, asking her about what inspires her creativity invites her to share a piece of her soul. If she talks about family, asking about the role family plays in her life shows that you respect her values. The more you personalize, the more the conversation feels like a safe space where she can be authentic and vulnerable. And that's exactly the kind of connection you want. Of course, personalization doesn't mean you have to have a perfect memory or keep track of every detail. It's about showing effort and intention. If you're unsure about something she mentioned before, it's okay to ask for clarification or gently bring it up again. That shows you care enough to try, which matters more than getting it perfect. Personalized questions also allow the conversation to grow in unexpected and beautiful ways. Sometimes, when you ask a question that truly resonates with her, she'll share something surprising or deeply personal. Those moments are the seeds for a relationship that goes beyond surface level. Another benefit of personalization is that it gives you confidence. When you see her light up talking about something she loves, you feel connected and energized. That positive feedback loop makes the conversation more enjoyable for both of you. And when the conversation feels natural and engaging, you're no longer just talking to a girl you like. You're building a connection that feels unique and real. This is why personalization is not just a tactic, it's a mindset. It's about approaching every conversation with respect, attentiveness, and genuine interest in her as a person. So as you think about the questions you want to ask, remember to tune into her world. Notice what excites her, what she values, and how she expresses herself. Use that knowledge to craft questions that speak directly to her heart. Because when your questions are personalized, they don't just start conversations, they build bridges. Bridges to understanding, trust, and meaningful connection. And that is how you move from casual chats to conversations that truly matter. Knowing when to ask a question is just as important as what you ask. Sometimes, the most powerful way to get a girl to open up is by recognizing when not to push, when to pause, and when to respect the natural flow of the conversation. This is something a lot of people overlook, but it's absolutely essential for building trust and comfort. Because no matter how perfectly crafted your questions are, if you ask at the wrong time or push too hard, it can shut her down instead of opening her up. You have to remember that every person has boundaries. Some are obvious, and others are subtle. Emotional openness isn't something you can force or rush. It happens when she feels safe and ready, not because you're eager to get a response. So part of being a good conversationalist is reading the signs and tuning into her energy, mood, and body language. That means paying attention not just to her words, but to what she's not saying. If you notice her getting quiet, looking away, or giving short answers, it might be a sign she's not comfortable with the topic or the pace. That's your cue to ease up. Instead of pressing for more, give her space. Shift the conversation to something lighter or just enjoy a comfortable silence for a moment. These pauses are natural and can actually deepen connection because they show you respect her feelings and aren't trying to force anything. Another thing to keep in mind is avoiding questions that are too personal or intense too soon. Even if your intention is good, asking about past relationships, family issues, or deep fears too early can feel invasive. It's like jumping into the deep end of the pool without making sure she's ready to swim. Instead, let those questions come naturally after you've built a solid foundation of trust through lighter, more playful, and personalized questions. It's also important to steer clear of questions that could make her feel judged or uncomfortable. For example, avoid questions that put her on the spot or require answers that might embarrass her. Conversations should be a safe zone, not an interrogation room. When she knows she won't be judged, she'll be much more likely to open up in her own time. And here's a crucial point. Sometimes the best thing you can do is listen more than you speak. When she's sharing something difficult or emotional, resist the urge to immediately fix or solve her problems. Instead, offer empathy and understanding. A simple, "That sounds really hard. I'm here if you want to talk about it," goes much farther than jumping in with advice or changing the subject. Respecting boundaries also means knowing when to stop asking questions altogether. If the conversation feels one-sided or like an interview, it can quickly become draining for both of you. Instead, focus on enjoying the moment, sharing your own stories, and letting the conversation flow naturally. When she feels relaxed and unpressured, she'll be more likely to share willingly. Timing is everything. Sometimes a question that feels perfect in one moment can feel wrong in another. This is why being present and attentive is so important. You're not just following a script, you're responding to the dynamic between you two. And that dynamic changes with mood, setting, and comfort level. It's also worth remembering that silence isn't your enemy. In fact, comfortable silences can be powerful. They give both of you time to think and feel. Don't rush to fill every pause with a question or comment. Sometimes, just being there quietly is the best way to show you care. Another layer of respect comes from being mindful of her energy. If she seems tired, distracted, or not fully engaged, it might not be the best time for deep or personal questions. Instead, save those for moments when she's more present and open. You'll also want to be aware of cultural or personal differences that influence how comfortable someone is with certain topics. What feels natural to you might feel invasive or inappropriate to her. Being sensitive to these differences shows emotional intelligence and respect, which builds trust over time. Avoiding overwhelming questions doesn't mean avoiding depth altogether. It means pacing the conversation thoughtfully. You can still ask meaningful questions, but sprinkle them between lighter or more fun topics. This creates a natural rhythm and prevents the conversation from feeling heavy or exhausting. It's also important to watch for signs that she might want to change the topic or end the conversation. If she starts giving very brief answers or seems distracted, that's a gentle signal to wrap things up or shift gears. Respecting this shows you value her comfort and autonomy. Remember, getting someone to open up is not about extraction or interrogation. It's about invitation and patience. The best connections happen when both people feel safe and willing to share, not pressured or rushed. Sometimes, you might feel tempted to ask a question because it seems like the right one. But if the moment doesn't feel right, trust your instincts to hold back. Authentic connection isn't about perfection. It's about being present and respectful. When you master the art of timing and respecting boundaries, your questions become tools of connection, not weapons that push people away. You create a space where she can share